Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit of the WoW podcast Blue Please on cynicalbrit.com. Welcome to the Deadmines Heroic. Yes, very, very popular request. Not that I pay any attention to such things, of course. But I was interested myself in knowing exactly what's going on here. I'll be honest, I was initially extremely skeptical when they first announced that the Deadmines in Shadowfang Keep would be made into heroic instances. Why was I skeptical, you might ask? Well, I have one particular dungeon that I would like to refer you to, and that is Naxxramas 2.0. That is why I was skeptical. Naxxramas ruined the original Naxxramas. Completely. I can think of no, and I do mean no, good things about Naxxramas 2.0 in comparison to the original. Not one. It sucks. So, I was thinking, well, maybe they can't ruin a level 20 dungeon so much, and yeah, for the most part, I was thankfully correct. They can't, and they didn't. This is a fairly good heroic dungeon. It isn't groundbreaking. It's certainly not the best heroic in Cataclysm, but it's definitely not the worst one either. It has some entertaining moments, and I will show you, as always, a full run-through at 200% speed, including strategies and everything else. So, you start off right here with these Ogres. These guys hit really, really hard. A lot of the trash in here actually hits really, really hard. However, one must bear in mind that hard-hitting trash like this can be very easily overgeared. Now, our tank is a little better than he was before. He's wearing mostly item level 333 with some heroic stuff. So he's got some item level 346, and he's not having as many problems as we thought he would. Now, the first gimmick right here is that throughout the dungeon there are these cannons, and you can use them to rain down fire and destruction. They do a massive amount of damage. However, they are very weak, and you can very easily pull aggro with them. So if you take a couple of hits while you're in the cannon will be destroyed. There's no way to heal it, and there is no way to repair it either. It is kind of neat, though, because you can pull a lot of the packs over to the cannon, use the cannon to shell, even around corners. It's not really that hard. The AoE is quite large. Huge amount of damage, as you can see right there. But they do tend to get killed very easily. Aside from that, it does trivialize the first few packs, and if you are looking for a challenge, I wouldn't recommend using the cannon. That said, it is trash, and a lot of people really don't care. Do I blame them? No, not really. Now, I must say, I just want to stay on this cannon the entire way through. It's nice to be able to do so much AoE damage, because, you know, as a fire mage, I'm not used to doing an awful lot of AoE damage. But these double bruiser pulls, yeah, they can be a big problem. It's good to be able to weaken them. Double bruisers can easily kill a undergear tank. You can see there, even our guys taking massive damage. Our healer is having to work very hard to keep them alive, and no, you cannot crowd control them either. Well, that's not entirely true, because I have been told by the party that you can root them. But you can't sheep them, you can't fear them, you can't use any of the reliable stuff, but apparently entangling roots might work. That's what I've been told at any rate. Now, it's a very, very quick and easy pull through to the first boss. Most of the bosses in this instance are new. They have completely replaced the old ones. Bear in mind, we killed all of them, so why would we go back and attack the same guys? Van Cleef? Edwin Van Cleef? Well, he's dead. So, obviously he's not here. All the other guys are dead as well, so if you have paid any attention to some other leveling videos around the place, you might be aware of a quest that is inspired by CSI, and that quest does actually introduce you to some of these characters. This guy, along with the rest of the guys, are recruited by the new boss of this particular dungeon. I'm not going to ruin that for you just yet. Now, you might be wondering what this guy does. He's not particularly challenging. He does a Fists of Flame and a Fists of Frost. Fists of Flame does AoE fire damage, Fists of Frost freezes people. He'll then go into Phase 2 at around 50% or so. He will go into the air, go crazy, he'll start raining down frost bolts everywhere, and he does this Halion-style Flame Wall. However, the Flame Wall, as far as I can tell, doesn't actually kill you. I can't remember whether or not I actually get hit by it. Let's keep an eye on it and see if that happens. No, I don't get hit by it at all, so no, none of us get hit by it. Of course we don't get hit by it. You'd have to be an idiot to get hit by it. And you also get a few ads there as well, and that really is about it. You'll also notice they've put in upgraded versions of the original gear, same models and all, so if you're feeling a little bit nostalgic for your Emberstone staff, or your Buzzer Blade, or your Mr. Smite's hammer, then yes, you should be able to get a hold of them. That boss is kind of neat, but it's not hard, really. I mean, that's a normal mode boss, let's be honest. That's not heroic. I think that could be tuned up and they can add some more mechanics to that to make it enjoyable. As it stands, I think you would have to be asleep to lose. Okay. Now, these pulls are a little annoying, but not all that difficult. There is a nice gimmick, however, in this. For some reason, the goblins are using a bunch of monkeys to mine. As to why, I don't know. We had kobolds mining earlier. They were being bribed with candles, I might add. The monkeys just seem to have been enslaved. Now, I do wonder if they brought them over from the Lost Isles, but considering that they blew up the Lost Isles, I doubt they managed to get too many monkeys out of there. Now, you can free the monkeys by clicking on the ball and chain, and I would definitely recommend doing so. Because, one, they won't kill you, as you can see right here, since it's very easy to accidentally AoE them, and that means you've got more trash to fight, rather irritating. And two, they will actually help you against the goblins. They throw these tiny little mining picks, which is a little odd, because why couldn't they have done that in the first place? Oh well, maybe they just needed some inspiration, the revolutionary spirit, perhaps. Who knows? Clearing them out is not that hard, it's just this trash really does take quite a while. There's nothing particularly difficult about any of it. I must say, though, I do appreciate the fact that they've actually gone all out to make this a new experience, because they could have very easily done Naxxramas 2.0 here. They could. They could have just taken the old mechanics, tuned them up to level 85, used the same bosses, same trash, and then that's it. And as it stands, it's pretty much the same design. You know, there are minor alterations, but the actual bosses and the mobs and some of the mechanics that you come into contact with here are much better than the originals, so I can't really complain too much. This instance also has an awful lot of encounters. Yes, quite a few, more so than the original, as I recall, and one of them is very, very unique. I will show you that at the end, and it would appear to be a one-shot event, and if you don't complete it the first time, you don't get to do it at all. It's kind of almost like an optional heroic boss, even though it's not that heroic, and it's certainly not that hard, but if you're not prepared for it, bearing in mind that it is a semi-gauntlet style event, then you can be in a lot of trouble. I will show you that at the end, and no doubt we'll get to go back here and try out the event and hopefully beat it in its entirety. Now, we've got to keep going and going and going. Lots and lots and lots more trash to go. What we do have to deal with are these oafs, and these oafs are quite dangerous. They have the potential to kill the tank. They're actually more unpleasant than the ogres at the start. The best thing you can really do here, bearing in mind they cannot be easily crowd-controlled, is to kite one of them away and kill the other. So you can see there the warlock's kiting that one. Curse of Exhaustion. It's going to kite it around the instance. Just make sure that you've got the space to do that. Nuke down the oaf as quickly as possible. Nothing to really worry about in terms of damage. You can see it is missing quite a lot, but when it does hit, it can take the tank down to half health in a single stroke. So, yeah, you do have to worry about that, especially when he enrages. Also, he's got this throwing dot that you can see right here. It does 28,000 damage per tick, and that did actually kill me there. It will throw what appears to be an axe at random in the party. That really just need to be healed over or gotten rid of in some way, because it does hurt an awful lot, and it is a bleed effect, so no dispelling for you. Now, this instance isn't exactly what I would call a massive challenge, especially not in comparison to Stonecore, and I think that someone on my channel for once actually made a valid point and said, I hope that you're not looking at this video through your challenge goggles, and that your experiences haven't been coloured somewhat by the experience of Heroic Stonecore. Well, I think they have, honestly, and I think it's very difficult to look at the other heroic content and not consider the level of challenge behind Heroic Stonecore. And it's not the only one. I mean, Heroic Stonecore is, if we don't count Shadowfang Keep, which we really shouldn't right now because it's blatantly, completely incorrectly tuned. And Blizzard have admitted this. They said it's really rough. It's not how it's supposed to be in live, and you really shouldn't necessarily judge the difficulty, but give it a bash anyway. And I may, indeed, give it a bash sooner rather than later so that I can experience the nonsense. You do have to relate it to something like Stonecore, because I think Stonecore is one of the best heroics they've ever made. It is easily on par with the better ICC 5-mans. You know, one of my favourite heroics, as I've said before, was Forge of Souls. And that's a really, really great heroic. So is Pit of Sauron. I think Pit of Sauron is excellent. I think the Halls of Reflection is all that great because, well, long gauntlet events are not all that interesting, really. They're an old mechanic. They can be traced back all the way to TBC. You remember there'll be ones in Zoloman. There was also one in Mount Hyjal. In fact, the entire instance was based on them, and as such it was a bad instance because gauntlet mechanics aren't all that interesting. But you've also got the end of Halls of Reflection, which was extremely interesting. The chase was fantastic. It was very tense as well. Really got the blood pumping. It was a very entertaining piece of content. I would say that Stonecore is easily on par with that. Arguably better. I mean, they have a fantastic set of bosses in there. Two of them I would consider to be exceptional, the first and the last. One could do with a tune-up, and the other one is, according to our tank anyway, very challenging and very enjoyable in that respect. As a ranged DPS, I guess I wouldn't really care so much about it because it's very easy for ranged DPS. And a lot of things are, but hey, there you go. I'll talk a little bit more about the difficulty level of this dungeon as we go on, but I'd like to show you the second boss right here, who is not all that hard, but he's extremely entertaining, and he has the most powerful attack in World of Warcraft. One of his main abilities that you're going to see right here is the ability for his crew to throw bombs down at you. And what do these bombs do? Let me show you. We're going to hit one of these bombs, and I will demonstrate. They are extremely powerful. They knock you off the server. Now, I must say, that is definitely the first time a bomb has knocked me completely off the server. I thought that Subject 4 that I met in the middle of Ashara, who managed to throw me through the world, was quite powerful, but yeah, this is even more ridiculous. I log back in the middle of the fight and things are going a little bit crazy. What you have to do here is avoid the bombs that are being chucked down by Helix's crew, kill the Lumbering Oaf, and then Helix will get off and he himself will attack. Helix will also throw bombs and attach them directly to the chest of certain targets, including wakes, and you don't want to be anywhere near them when they go off. They have a knockback effect, and you can chain into multiple bombs if you're not careful. Some of the bombs are on timers, so you don't want to get too close, and of course, some of them have proximity effects. One way or the other, that's a lot of bombs, ladies and gents, so you want to be dodging that all the way through. It's not all that hard, though. The bombs don't hit all that hard, with the exception of that one at the start, so it's not a difficult fight to bring down. Entertaining, certainly, but again, a couple more mechanics, tune it up a little bit, make it last a little bit longer. Although, come to think of it, I think I was offline for about a minute and a half, so I don't really know how long it really was. Hey, but there you go. Still, it's fun. I think, honestly, that might be what they're going for here. I don't think they're trying to create an uber-hard heroic. I mean, they have other heroics that do fill that purpose, but they haven't created an uber-easy one either. I mean, this is harder than Vortex Pinnacle by a fairly significant margin, because, well, everything is harder than Vortex Pinnacle. In fact, I think the original Deadmines was harder than Vortex Pinnacle. But it seems to me what they're trying to do is create a nostalgia trip, as well as an excuse for players that may have not gone to this instance before, i.e. the Horde, to go and check it out. Probably the same reason that Shadowfang Keep is being put in. So, you know, the other 50%, i.e. the Alliance, can go to a dungeon that they are not intimately familiar with already. Now, there is a cynical way to look at this, and cynicalprick.com. What you can say there is, like, oh, Blizzard has found a small niche of content that hasn't been completely done to death by everybody, so let's completely recycle it, and instead of designing a new dungeon, we're going to just throw this at people, because, you know, some Hordes haven't been to Deadmines, and some Alliance haven't been to Shadowfang Keep, so they'll clearly see this as brand new content. That's a cynical way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that, well, yeah, some people haven't seen it, so wouldn't it be nice to give it a facelift and give some new encounters, and also to make a completely new dungeon based on the old one for those who have already done this one to death, i.e. the Alliance. It surprises me a little, I must say, that they haven't done that with other dungeons, such as, well, say, Ragefire Chasm, or the Stockades. Oh wait, they have done it with the Stockades. They haven't done it with Ragefire Chasm yet, though. That could definitely do with a polish-up. But I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing, honestly. They've done enough to it to justify it being new content. The only recycled content in here is the actual layout, which I don't really care about. The layout doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form to me, honestly. It's about the boss content within it, and whether or not there is new stuff there, and whether or not the trash is any fun, or whether or not there's cool loot, and there's a challenge there, and maybe a little bit of originality, which there is, I might add, especially towards the end of this. It does get better and better. But it's not hard, really. I've seen a couple of videos that seem to struggle on it. I don't know whether or not they've just nerfed it, or whether or not these fights are very easily overgeared. I think a lot of this is overgearable, honestly, which is a shame, because we've seen some bosses and some encounters and trash that would appear to be not so much scaled with gear, but they're immune to being overgeared. And I think a lot of mechanics should be immune to being overgeared. Though, bear this in mind. If you make everything immune to being overgeared, then you defeat the point of having gear to begin with. So it is a very delicate balance. The difference, say, between Cataclysm and Wrath is that Wrath had nothing that couldn't be overgeared, that I can honestly remember, whereas Cataclysm has some stuff that can't be overgeared, which is good. I mean, unquestionably it's good. It's just how much of that you have in your game. If you have too much, then you defeat the point of gathering gear to begin with. It's alive! It's alive! Say the goblins as they flee out of the room like a bunch of sissies. In this case, you can damage them so much that you can actually ride them around a bit, but you can't stay in them for very long. They're actually on fire, which doesn't help. You get maybe 15 seconds in them at max. And you might wonder, well, what the hell's the point? Well, there is a point. It's actually a very sneaky way of teaching you about the next fight. Now, that's pretty damn innovative as far as I'm concerned, and there is another nice little thing in here that will teach you about the next fight as well. Now, we're going to be going up against the Foe Reaper 5000, who is a fairly entertaining boss, and this is where we're going to end part 1. We'll do this, and then I'll come back with part 2. I'm splitting it up simply because of length, and the upload time and processing time on a 40-minute video like this is absurd. So I thought you might want to see part 1 now, and then you can see part 2 a little bit later on. That makes a little bit of sense to me, I suppose. Plus, a lot of people were complaining about the loading times of 40-minute videos, and I don't really blame them, honestly. YouTube tends to be a little slow on such things. So, how does this fight work? Well, the Foe Reaper doesn't do all that much. He does a bit of a spin around, and things can get a little bit unpleasant. But the main mechanic is that he will also summon lava elementals. And the only way that you can get rid of them is to use the prototype Farm Reaper. You see the one that I'm using right there, the Defias Reaper, these farming machines. There's a prototype one designed specifically to deal with this. Now, we did end up pulling, and it's a little bit problematic. You'll see what he does right here. He does this overdrive, which is basically a whirlwind. But these are the problems. He summons these bastards, and they have a massive explosion that hits like an absolute truck. You see there, it hits me for 50,000 damage. It is really unpleasant. You cannot have those in the group. It will wipe you immediately. This is the hardest boss in here, but it's still not all that tricky. You just got to know what the gimmick is. So allow me to show you exactly what the gimmick is as we go in once again. Now, as it turns out, there is a manual. Yes, indeed. Next to the stack of pamphlets, I would strongly suggest that you read it. It will tell you exactly what you have to do in this fight in a rather cryptic way. I kind of like that. I think it's pretty neat. I can hear them screaming right now, Totalbiscuit, I couldn't read it in that time. Well, 1, be better at reading, and 2, learn to pause, you nitwit. Now, this fight does seem to have a few issues. We get it the 3rd time, but I'll show you the prototype Reaper. I will try to pilot it, but the abilities don't seem that reliable. I did try to use them, and they didn't really work out so well. Admittedly, it does take a little bit of learning. But hey, it's nice to have a little bit of learning as to whether or not I approve of yet another vehicle fight. It's fairly well done, or at least only one of your guys has to be in it, so it's not too bad. So what you've got to do is you've got to drag the Foe Reaper over to the prototype Reaper, which is in the corner. So we're going to show you that right there. He'll do a spark, which will bring it to life. You then jump in it, and it's pretty much got the same attacks as the one that you used before. Now what you want to do is try and use it to engage the lava elemental. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to care about me hitting it. It was ignoring me there. You have a stun, you have a speed, and you've also got a charge. So I've got it on me right there. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too late, and it killed everybody. You do have to be pretty quick on this, and what I would recommend is that the party drags the Foe Reaper up to the top of those stairs, and you stay down there in the Farm Reaper, and then you can take out the magma elementals as they spawn. So let's do it right this time, shall we? It's certainly a fairly entertaining gimmick fight. I think they do need to tighten up the mechanics on the vehicle a little bit, because as I said, it doesn't quite feel like you're actually hitting anything half the time, and indeed you're not. Okay, so let's catch him here. There's the charge, and then you smack him about a bit. Keep smacking him, get him into the corner if you can. Those things, you can't hold aggro on them as far as I can tell. They are going to go for the group regardless, and that AoE will kill the group, so you want to be very quick. Just keep hitting the stun, charge up there if need be, use your speed boost, which is on button 3 if required. Grab him, smack him, hopefully not die. This is a bit of a scrappy attempt, but what I will say is this boss has no health at all. So, this fight's going to be completely overgeared. Completely. But hey, an Emberstone staff, so everything's okay, right? It's a neat idea, but I do think it needs to last longer, and perhaps maybe add a couple more abilities to the vehicle, make it a little bit more fancy. Not a bad fight, though, certainly. Alright, folks, we're going to end it here for the first part of the Deadmines video, and then I'm going to go work on the second. I'm uploading this so that you get to see it quicker, otherwise it would take bloody ages. So I'll be back to show you the pirate ship, of course, and many more interesting trash pulls, including Totalbiscuit gets instantly killed by rogues. I'll see you next time.